So first of all, thank you all so much for tuning in today. I'm really excited to learn together on this call. And a bit of background information on our host. Throughout her 15-year career, Lindsay has worked with over 100 startups and investors, as well as teams across Fortune 500 firms. Her education is in human-computer interaction and systems engineering. She built her career in user experience and product development, and her persistent passion has always been to design technology for people. And since her engineering degree has helped her immensely throughout her journey, she now works with founders who may not have the same background or education to help them sell the right product before building the wrong one. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for taking the time to host this call today. We know how valuable your time is, and we can't wait to learn from you today.
Thank you. I love hearing that, the bio come out of someone else's.
You gotta brag on yourself.
I'll share my screen. How about that? I think I want to share this one. I think in the meantime, I do want to ask, what are you all working on where you feel that this topic could help you?
Do we say it out loud or type?
Yes, please.
Okay. So just the context on where I am, and Lindsay, I know we talk a lot, but I was thinking about the framing of why I wanted to join this. And essentially, my role is a lot of product development within a services business. And it's essentially the company I work for has been doing something really, really well for 20 years. And now we're evolving what we offer. So I have been working on a few new products that use technology to bring some of the benefits of our services to more people. And what happened is at the start of the year, there were all these ideas, and I was tasked with making them all into products. And so now it's 8 months into the year. I feel like one of them is in client ready form, but the pressure was just oh, we need all these things. And everyone was one product they told me to develop in 6 weeks. And so it's kind of, now I'm at the point where I have to drive really ruthless focus and make sure that the products that we're putting out meet the market need and prioritize what I should be working on to move our business forward. So there's an element of focusing, really understanding what's realistic and knowing what's enough to go to market with. And then once I do, kind of how to just keep iterating while making, commercial movement as well.
Cool. Michelle, your thing.
Okay, so I'm founder of a tech company called Positive Hire, where we connect experienced women of color, STEM professionals to management roles. So I've been working on it for about 2 years. I've talked to Fortune 500s who've been interested. They move a whole lot slower than this tech startup I talked to less than a week ago. That's hey, we'll send you over the contract. And I had the contract 2 hours later. So I'm really trying to figure out, do I need to start targeting startups or SMBs to really start initially get my traction?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Suzanne, I know you're driving, but do you have a nutshell of where you are right now?
Sure. It's Susanna Balin, CEO of Advice Coach. We have a SaaS platform where anyone with content can create basically a private YouTube channel. We are currently in healthcare, where physical therapists can record their exercises in our technology for their patients. We have early adopters who are paying us, but nowhere near product market fit. So the question is, what do we need to do to make sure that our roadmap makes sense? We can't guarantee anything, but get to the point where we have demand rather than simply supply.
Got it. Okay, cool. So today's talk is about working through product market fit, and I'm going to start with a story. So back in 2012, I was standing in the hills of Port-au-Prince in Haiti, looking around at ill-built cinder block homes and dilapidated huts that they used for schools. And to catch my breath, I walked to the end of this pathway, and I saw 5 outhouses. And sorry for the description, but there was like feces rolling down the hill. It was so gross. And when I looked up, there was a huge banner across these outhouses that said, sponsored by USAID. So when we talk about the 90% project failure rate in the startup tech world, we have to also understand that 50% of IT projects fail across companies of all sizes. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation often accepts up to 100% failure rate, and the US government continues to fund USAID, though their projects too have roughly a 90% failure rate. So are people like, are we that bad at solving problems, right? Are we that bad at solving problems? And I've always found this like 90% failure in startups like really annoying. Like, why on earth do we accept this? Well, when I dig into the top 20 reasons that startups fail, CB Insights puts this list out every year, I realized that of all these 20, they all go back to a singular crack in the foundation, and that is that the company was missing some crucial information about their customer. So if you launched a no market need, the number one reason startups fail, you didn't solve a problem any customer wanted you to solve. If you ran out of cash, you didn't solve a problem so great customers were willing to pay for it. If you don't have the right team, you didn't hire people willing to do anything to solve the customer's problem. If you got out-competed, you didn't understand the unique value you brought to the customer. Pricing and cost issues, same thing is if you're solving a customer's problem, how much are they willing to pay you to solve that problem? So the popular startup blueprint goes something like identify a problem, stub out a solution, go build an MVP, and then find product market fit. But that's literally what launching to no market need means, right? Is build a product and then go find customers. We can't really afford to do that. So let me review it just like in another way, what this might look like. We are super excited at the beginning when we have an idea. We're like, the juices are flowing. We run to our friends and family. We get their support because they love and support us. We talk to a few customers. We log these as customer research and validation, and then we bulldoze through product development. And once we start spending money and then we realize that it's not as easy as we thought, we crash a little. We're followed by something super depressing. You're at an all-time low, realizing that you spent $5,000 or $250,000 on software development and you don't actually have a business. If entrepreneurship wasn't hard enough, now you're like even freaking lower, and there's a lot of uncertainty and self-doubt. I don't know about you, but like uncertainty and self-doubt come with entrepreneurship and being an innovator and creative. So I'd rather not have a very high and then a very low following. So, and if you're lucky, if you're not broke, if you didn't give up and go find a full-time job, maybe, as the startup blueprint says, product market fit is an inflection point. Maybe you will get there, okay? what this actually looks like, I spend a lot of time in Facebook groups and in female founder communities, answering questions. What this looks like throughout my career is I see stuff like, I'm stuck, I can't code, so I can't do this prototype, and I can't do it the way that I want, and they're looking for funding or they're looking for software developers, but that's all like a cover up for what the real problem is. The real problem is that poor upfront market research and validation leaves them lost and confused. They end up executing pilots inefficiently, like getting feedback on their pilots. They ask the wrong questions on their surveys. They ask for feedback from people that will never be their customer, right? So how many times in a Facebook group have you seen, hey guys, I launched my survey, help inform my product, and that's it. Here's a link to the survey, right? Like, I do not want people taking my survey that will never be my customer, right? You know, so you need to say up front, who is your customer? The problem is we bulldozed through the customer feedback because we were so excited about our idea and we went straight to product development that we don't really know who our customers are. We also go straight to software developers, and I'll talk a little bit more about why we do that. But I have clients that come to me and are being told that it's totally normal to spend $75,000 on the first version of an app, right? Like an MVP, the first version of a product, is supposed to be extremely cheap. It works from a software developer's perspective, but from a non-technical person's perspective, it's not cheap. So we got to figure out a different way to go about it. Then I just see, again, like everyone pauses everything to find a tech co-founder and an investor because they think that's their only option. So product market fit, we cannot afford to have it be an inflection point because we cannot afford to pursue it after a product is built. I'll give you a second to absorb this photo. It takes some time, but essentially we have a water float that looks like a maxi pad, right? And the girl Jillian's just saying we could have, if we had one focus group, right? So we do not want to launch products and then try to find customers. It leaves way too many assumptions unknown, okay? So how do I know all of this to be true? Most of you know me, so I'll go through this really quickly. I've been playing this game for 15 years. I started designing software in 2002. I went to Silicon Valley with a twinkle in my eye. I've worked with all those startups and investors that Hannah said, but I also executed the startup blueprint, like this popular startup blueprint, to a T. Top 5 business plan competitions, articles written about me in SF Gate and NBC Bay Area about little software products I did, looking for tech co-founders, hacking on the weekends, and like nothing built up into like a business. And I left Silicon Valley with my tail between my legs, feeling maybe I wasn't cut out for this. But I picked myself back up, moved to New York, worked for a bunch of startups there, set out on my own in 2014. And as I started to look around and get my own entrepreneurial feet underneath me, I realized that my thoughts around how a startup should be built and had matured and evolved. But no matter how many new terms Silicon Valley introduces, we're still getting 90% failure rate. The thought process on how to create businesses has not evolved at all. It's still wrong. So why is it this way? Why is the blueprint too simple? So one, there's a historical emphasis on the first to market. So skip all that customer validation and just go straight to putting something out in the market. With 2005, we were emerging from that bus, and that's when I got to San Francisco. I'd like to think we left that in the wake, but it's still there. We also have an obsession with Steve Jobs as some deity of innovation. You can't go to any innovation conference without hearing someone mention a quote from Steve Jobs. All of his innovations were based on years and years and years of government research. So let's not think that we should pick an idea out of the sky and run with it. Most people, we avoid the hard people part. I thought it was just engineers, but I've realized now working with enough people outside of tech that everyone just likes to avoid the subjectivity that humans bring into a situation. Software developers built this industry, and we have a lot to owe them, and we're going to need them at some point, but they're not the king of building a tech startup anymore, and we shouldn't be running to them right away. And finally, you probably wouldn't be surprised, but there's little diversity in thought leadership when it comes to product market fit. Like, lots of great guys with lots of great experience, but there's no women, no people of color talking about other ways to match and get to product market fit. And then finally, what this presentation is about and about product market fit is that we have some fundamental tendencies that get in our way. I'm going to skip this slide really quickly, but you get the point that product market fit is not an inflection point. We need better, more detailed and specific benchmarks that help us from the very beginning of an idea to make sure that we're always aligned between customer and business. So from here on forward, I have 3 myths, and then I'm going to offer up real facts in contrast to those myths and propose these 7 new benchmarks for product market fit. Amongst there, I have some case studies, and so I want this to kind of be interactive. I'm going to do my best to pause and make sure that I address some of the things that you guys have talked about in there. And hopefully, if we keep our customer and business aligned, we will increase the likeliness of success. Okay, so the 3 myths we need to stop believing. When it comes to our own capabilities and beliefs, these we totally overestimate ourselves. So myth number 1 is that the problem you experience, if you solve it, makes a business. So I experienced this problem, there must be a bunch of other people that experience this problem, enough so that I have a business here. Myth number 2 is that you are the customer, and just because you found a solution that works for you does not mean your solution will work for a lot of other people. And myth number 3 is if you build it, they will come. We want to believe that what we build is so amazing. And of course, what we're building is so amazing. People will naturally love it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way. So myth number 1 is because this problem bothers me, it must bother enough other people that this is a business. We buy into this so quickly. We're anxious when we experience a problem, so we get excited about the first solution. But that first solution is something obvious. It's not innovative. Like, why do we have so many food, travel, and event apps that are solving the problem the same way? Because everyone goes with the first solution, right? So how was Einstein? It's not that I'm so smart. It's just that I stayed with the problem longer. I dove deeper into the complexities around this. You know, we avoid the human subjective part. We can't avoid it. He stayed in the uncomfortable spot of analyzing the problem. So instead of plowing forward, ignoring important details, we need to hang out with a variety of potential customers and explore the possibility that there's some bigger problem or better problem to solve, that there's something not obvious out there. And it's not easy, it's anxiety producing, but will eliminate a lot of heartache, all of those other reasons that we think startups fail down the road. So what you're really looking for when you're looking at your customer feedback and doing ongoing interviews is what I call the most valuable problem. You cannot have the first version of your product, that minimal viable product, without the real MVP. This is the problem that if you solve it, people will pay you. So Beth, to answer the question, which projects you should prioritize, which ones will have the biggest impact revenue-wise and demand from clients, which address the problems you hear the most often from everyone. So in the process of marinating in this problem, like Albert Einstein, we're answering really important questions that create the foundation for our business. Questions like, is there a problem worth solving here? Is the problem so painful that some market segment will actually pay you to solve it? Is this a vitamin or a painkiller, right? A painkiller people want right away. Vitamin, it takes some time. And is the struggle worth it? I guarantee you, if you can sit with the problem and interview and talk to so many other people, take a 30-minute interview and make sure 25 of those minutes they're talking and 5 minutes you're talking. If you can do that with at least 10, 20 people, then I'll believe you're passionate about solving this problem. So let me ask you, for those of you saying like you're working through product market fit and through your different projects, if you evaluated all the time that you spent thus far in your startup, so there's this other Albert Einstein quote that says, given an hour, I'd spend 55 minutes on the problem and 5 minutes on the solution. Like, what proportion of those 60 minutes would reflect the time on the problem versus the solution? Like 40 minutes on the problem, 20 on the solution? Or maybe like you pride yourself on doing more than thinking, so 20 minutes on the problem, 40 minutes on the solution? And of the time that you spent thinking about the problem, whether it was 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 55 minutes, how many of those minutes did you spend thinking about it from your perspective versus wholly the perspective of other people?
The whole time.
The whole time?
Well, not my perspective, but I think like some of what I'm trying to do with the products I'm developing is solve problems for people I work with, but it doesn't matter if I solve their problems if I'm not solving a problem outside.
Right, for customer.
Right, for the customer.
So like the new stages in problem exploring are founder problem fit and problem value fit. Founder problem fit, why is this the team to solve this problem? It's all those things you hear, right team, right time, right skills, passion, commitment, connections. Like I said, I'll believe it when you've done the thorough customer research and validation that you're really passionate about it, unless you're like a 30-year subject matter expertise, and I totally get it from there. So problem value fit, this is like, is this a problem we're solving? We cannot accept some version of everyone as our early market. We need something very, very, very specific. I was just on the phone with a potential client. She said the entire architecture and engineering contracting industry. And I'm like, people are telling her that's too small, and I'm telling her for the purposes of product development, that's too big. Okay, we need a clear, compelling problem statement, something that everyone can nod their head to. Maybe you have a customer advisory board, like customers that are so excited just at the idea that you solve this problem that they want to be involved in finding the solution, which is like, notice that I am not even talking about a solution yet, right? The first two benchmarks of really product market fit have nothing to do with the solution and have everything to do with whether you identified a problem anyone cares about, right? Anyone cares about. So I'll give you an example of one of my clients, Allison. She's passionate about food waste. She had so many ideas swirling in her head. It affects so many people. We waste 40% of our food. She definitely had founder problem fit. She was a private chef. She had 2 different businesses, years of experience. But again, there were like way too many solutions that she was totally overwhelmed with. So I got her to kind of focus on who she wanted to focus on was women that were young families, new mothers. And so when we started to look for the real most valuable problem, it's obvious that the cognitive overload of just meal planning for a small family every week is way too high. Like, give you example, by the time they pick out the recipes, make a meal plan, write the shopping list, get to the grocery store, deal with screaming children, debate between wild or farm raised, organic or conventional, canned or fresh. Like, the mom is not thinking, did I buy too much parsley, right? So a lot of times I see entrepreneurs that have some solution that no one's buying because they don't even, it doesn't even cross their mind that that's the problem they're trying to solve. The problem that they're really trying to solve upstream is like meal planning, recipes, cooking, like all of this, just getting food on the table. So what Allison did and what she does is she offers 1 week meal plans for families of 4 that use up all of the groceries that you buy. Because she knows her mom is not going to go look for a recipe to use up leftover parsley, right? So she's going to include all those recipes in the meal plan. And she iterated from there. So here's a case study, and this is like something that I would like to be a little interactive to see if you guys get the founder problem and problem value is, so I have this basic premise that this entrepreneur calls me and says she found an opportunity for, she's an early stage wellness beauty company, and she found an opportunity for organic vegan deodorant. She said her goal was to like find product market fit, and the roadblocks were, you know, developing the right skills, getting feedback and input from customers. And why now? She's going in to develop samples. She wants to think about packaging and other products. She wants to know where the white space is and who her customers are. So what kind of questions would we ask to know if she has found her problem fit? Be critical. Be judgy. What is like what would we want to know?
Who really wants vegan deodorant?
Well, that's a question. So, well, first and foremost, are you vegan? Do you know anything about cosmetics? Have you ever made deodorant before? Experience with manufacturing? Like, tell me about that, right? But then also, problem value fit, like she's going in to develop samples. So she's already skipping to solution, but she doesn't know who her customers are. And you know what problem you're solving if you haven't specified the customer. And how do you know where the white space is in the market if you don't know who the customer is, right? The customer, the white space is from the customer's perspective, not yours, right?
Mm-hmm. Like I'm thinking about deodorant, and I know people who want to switch deodorants because they're afraid of getting like breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know the benefits of vegan deodorant, if it's about animal cruelty or not. But anyways, I'm just rambling. This makes a lot of sense.
I mean, the point is that she didn't have this experience. She was going to spend money on the product development. She was already trying to think of the next product and the bigger vision. And you know what? I'm a strategy person too. I love the big picture, the big vision. But at the end of the day, she wasn't ready. She should not be moving forward with this. Not yet, though, right? So not having founder problem fit and problem value fit is how the typical startup journey fails from the get-go. We experience the problem, we jump to a solution, we think we have a business. So if myth number 1 is if this problem is solved, there's a business, the fact is A problem is only worth solving if you're obsessed with it and there are early customers that are willing to pay you to solve it. So, myth number 2, you are the customer. So now that we know there's this thing, the most valuable problem that will justify the basis for this entire business and why you should be the one to pursue it, we need to start looking for innovative solutions. So myth number 2 is you are the customer. But if you don't have the previous 2 fits, then your solution development is based on a very faulty foundation. Because whatever solution you found and works for you, you have no evidence that it'll work for a lot of other people enough to make this a business, okay? So just because you were a victim of a problem, it does not bestow you the power to see the solution. And I see even subject matter experts saying, well, I'm customer number 1. And I'm like, no, you're not, because you're not paying for it. Like, you're not customer number 1. Maybe you like the solution, but no one else wants to do it your way. I mean, how many of you have even just proposed some really fun plans to your friends for the weekend and no one else is interested? Right? Something that you were super excited about and no one else is interested, just falls flat, right? Imagine putting $20,000 behind that and then figuring out that no one else is interested, right? So in the previous stages, we stayed with the problem. It was uncomfortable. We learned a lot. We should be open to new solutions. We should be open to the solution not being what we originally thought it was. I mean, Allison did not think she was making meal plans, right? She thought maybe she'd teach people how to cook. Who knows what she thought she was doing? So it's not about you and how you would solve the problem. As you start to lay out the solution, you need to like put your personal conjecture aside. So if you have problem value, then you know the real MVP. In the deodorant example, she was looking to find customers and then solve problems. In Allison's example, she found customers first and then found products for them. So don't find customers for your product, find products for your customers. So each of you have customers out there. And if it's not the product that you're offering them, what is it that they need? Find products for them, okay? So the approach and the mindset in solution development is that we can co-create the solution with our customers. So the entrepreneurs, the innovators that know this, they build real businesses by involving their customers early and often. They find customers even before they design and build a product. These founders know 2 things. One, like businesses, ideas, ventures, they're less risky when you have customers involved in designing your product. And nothing's better than having customers waiting to buy your product before it's even ready, right? So if you've done so much great, I'll take an example. Lilu is a breast pumping massage bra, and they did so many iterations of their early prototypes with so many mothers that by the time they launched their like Kickstarter, they were able to easily sell over 150,000 worth of these bras to pre-order because they had already had customers buy in from the very beginning. So Beth, one of the things I'm thinking about with you is like which of these product ideas have been born from a customer need versus one of your coworkers' ideas?
Yeah, so there's one product that essentially it's a diagnostic tool around like wellness in the corporate space, and we've been doing it like very old-fashioned pen and paper with, you know, thousands of people in our corporate clients, and they're like, we want more, we want more, we want to bring it to more people. How can we give this to thousands more people in our organization? So there's there was like a demand for greater accessibility, and the way we responded was to build an online version of the tool, which I did go out and user test with a bunch of people, but it started with the assumption on our end that it needs to be online. That's kind of how we thought about solving the problem. So it's meeting a real customer need, because when we have gone in and done this work, they're like, oh, we really need this, and more people, we work, like our entire organization needs this. So that's an example of one where somewhat it's tailored to basically people asking us to give it to them. And that one is the one that's going best. The others, I like, yeah, I just don't feel like we've been asked for it all.
Yeah. So, Michelle, one of the things I'm thinking about is that you've got this one startup that is like super excited and gave you the money quickly. I'd be really curious to see how that project evolves and executes differently than your corporate clients, and like what their needs were and how they were different, because the value propositions that you use to sell your product to a startup client might be different, right? Like the pain they have might be perceived differently, and the value they put on it might also be perceived differently. So before just pushing money into marketing the product you have, I would put the like listening tour hat back on and use this first engagement with the startup as like a test, as a way to learn. That makes sense? So
yes, that makes sense.
yeah. So the new stages of solution finding reflect multiple iterations. I purposely made sure that there were at least 3, but believe me, you're going to go through so many iterations, more than that, and they won't always be clearly defined iterations. It's not so simple to just go from building an MVP to finding product market fit. And we shouldn't have to burn holes in our pockets, like investing a lot up front to figure out if our solution is on target. So we go from value to prototype by finding out like our unique way of solving this problem. Is that the way our customers want us to solve the problem, right? So your unique sauce, Beth, was to make this tool online. And so then you figure out that like that's working, right? That worked. And so we can start iterating from there. But if that didn't work, then you need to like keep iterating on what that solution might be. Then going from prototype to pilot, you know, not every solution, I'm sure Susanna can say, is like not every tech platform is fully built and automated from the get-go. We need to build some of the core functionality and then figure out how our business operations work and figure out what the customers are asking for, and then strategically add functionality that slowly removes ourselves from the process. So can customers start to derive value without me involved? And then moving from pilot to product, it's like, now that a lot of it's automated, can we encourage certain behaviors and meet some initial key metrics? So a lot of the time I see startups that are already trying to measure like daily active users and downloads and conversions, when really the only important metric from value to through pilot and product is are people using it, right? Like that's the only metric that matters, is are people like using it and are they able to derive value? Once we like know we've hit pilot product is because all those other metrics start to really make a lot more sense. But once we like focus on those metrics and stop thinking about whether they're using it, we stop being curious, right? And we start going back into we are the customer, we know the answer, we're building everything and we're pushing our idea on them, versus taking the mindset of like co-creating each of these stages with them. I know that most entrepreneurs, because I've done surveys, they don't talk to their customers more than like once a month, right? Like once a month, once a quarter. Like there's way too many decisions that you're making every single day that aren't based on customer insights. It's you're missing a lot of information and a lot of data. So again, in these stages, we are like starting small. We're slowly building out the features, and the feature set expands. The target audience like morphs and expands. Sometimes where we start works, but then as we expand, there's some other audience that works better. And I know, Susanna, you've done that with your audience. But the whole point is that while we're developing the product, we're developing relationships with our customers. We understand why they like what we are offering them. And so the way that we talk to them, anything that gets fed into any type of marketing, sales, business development starts to really show that you understand them. And that takes time. So this
other quick question, Lindsay.
Yeah.
I'm just not 100% clear on when you talked about, can the customers derive value without me involved? Could you just like say a sentence or two about what your main point is there?
Yeah. So my main point is that your initial version of the product should have been so small that probably some of you manually being involved was included, right? And like, if I can I use your file management example?
Yeah.
Okay. Beth comes to me with like how to organize all of our company's files and folders. They're jumping into like, can they do WordPress and create this entire system? But the reality is the first thing that they need to see is if the employees, coworkers will even go to one destination to like look for these files and assets. And so I told you to like, while you were imagining this like self-service, like full WordPress site where people could start using it themselves, I said, why don't you pull back a little and just create like a small Dropbox with the schema that you're thinking about. And that requires more of your involvement to keep everything like clean. Yeah. So then as you go to prototype pilot and you build off of that, maybe you start to add in some automation tools so that you are not as involved, or you take
right.
it to the next level.
Yeah. Can I just mention one lesson that I learned?
Sure.
That when you're presenting your solution, you present the outcome. You present how it's going to feel when this is easier, cheaper, faster, better. The process to get there is not what you're selling. So that's what I'm hearing, Lindsay, is what you're reminding me is that in the beginning, you have to demonstrate the outcome fast. Mm-hmm. And it's much faster for me to demonstrate the outcome than it is for someone who's never, hasn't thought about this for the zillions of hours I have.
Right. Exactly.
Can't come onto the screen, know exactly what to click. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, to sum that up, and it's something I'm going to say in the next myth, is like people at the early stages, people buy your vision, and only a little bit of the product. So if you actually have the right niche customer segment, the product, they don't care about the product. They care about the fact that you're delivering to them the value. Like, solve my problem. I give you an example of a client of mine putting a mentoring platform together. She brought in 30 mentors and mentees. She asked them to sign up for her website. She didn't like the usability outcomes, so she just didn't talk to these people for like months on end. And I'm like, you have to finish the value by making matches, even if it's not on the software platform. Just go ahead and make those matches so that you can at least see how those matches evolve, because that's the value you're trying to deliver, right? So we want to like force it to be through the specific product, but they don't actually care. They just want the value, right?
Mm-hmm.
They bought into you, they want the value, right?
Absolutely.
So I'll give you a quick example. Hoppin is founded by Dreamers and Doers, Billiana Frey. Her and I have worked together over the past year. It's a job shadowing marketplace that enables people to try different jobs for like one day. And it helps reduce employee turnover, high switching costs, because young professionals get to go behind the scenes in other industries. So Value Prototype, they had, like 21 hosts in New York City. The website was just like fairly basic with profiles that the management team created themselves. When someone wanted to check out, they really had to like contact the company, and like everything happened behind scenes. So it was like a lot of manual matches. And as they like moved off of that to graduate to prototype and pilot, they found they were able to start focusing on one, finding the right creatives and people to be shadowed. So they had some audience. By doing the manual matches, they had some audience to understand this is the type of entrepreneurs and employers they want to shadow. So we'll only recruit those people, instead of, I see in a lot of marketplaces like spray and pray, we'll get someone from a little bit of everything. We want to be super focused. But curiously, like I said, audiences can morph and expand. They found that B2B companies wanted to offer these one-day experiences to high-performing employees as a benefit. So like I said, they could strategically select new hosts. They started to standardize the pricing, so you learn more about your business operations as well. They could start to make it more self-service, so that hosts could sign up by themselves versus like going through a Google form. In pilot product, we still need to see, right? So every step of the way, it's like, even if these minimum features solve our problems, then you're on the right track. But it's better keep it minimum versus over designing. So in the interest of time, I'm going to speed up a little. So myth number 1 is you're not your customer. Fact number 2 is involve your actual customers in every step of product design to keep these two things, the business value and the customer needs, aligned. So if you build it, they will come. This is where I hear everyone saying this. We want to believe that what we build is so amazing. Everyone will just naturally love it. All the major media outlets will write about us. Every user will be an evangelist. And even if not, we have the grit to execute, so there's no big deal. I wish it was that easy. But the vague startup blueprint leads entrepreneurs to build more product without marketing. So we have this ego that we are the customer, and that ego actually leads us to also believe that people will love it. But that same ego is scared for negative feedback. So we think, I'm just going to build my product more. It's not finished. I can't show it to anyone. No product is ever finished if no users are using it, okay? So you got to put it out there, right? So when I ask entrepreneurs how they're going to market their business, and they talk about like growth hacking or buy email addresses or SEO or influencer marketing, they have no experience with any of these tactics. I get a lot of hesitant looks and a lot of like, in order for any of these things to work, you have to have already known your customers. So you can't use these tactics to test and find your customers, right? Everything that goes into this, brand values, differentiators, like I said, even like who the competition is and the white space, it's all from your customer's perspective. So we don't want to jump to big and expensive marketing tactics, because we tend to miss the fundamental marketing elements. Everything needs to be from the customer's perspective. And marketing, we have to start it a whole lot earlier than we ever think, because people do not buy the second they see or hear about a product. It takes time for them to become aware and build trust. So you have to do some marketing before your product is ready. Create some communication with your customers ahead of time. It's absolutely necessary. It's incredibly meaningful to do that all, so that by the time you launch to people you know there's a market for your product, right? So the last two stages, this is where I see entrepreneurs, like they always think they're in product launch and launch scale. Launch is a word that we can use to describe lots of things. So in the last solution phase with pilot and product, you were doing mini launches. But to launch like really big, like buy a Super Bowl ad type of launch, you should have all of like early referrals and organic signups and marketing language that resonates with like a solid distribution channel. You should be able to see like your customer acquisition costs decreasing. You're aligned with partners and thought leaders, and you have like the expanded feature set for like the expanded market. So I'll give you an example of what this looks like. Social Ladder is a startup here in Philadelphia that I did due diligence on 2 years ago. They are a B2B platform that enables large festivals to have brand ambassador incentive programs. So when they were moving through product development, they started with like a few festivals like Wanderlust, and it was really high touch. Lots of things manual, a little bit of technology. So they used those relationships to develop the early version of the product. And in doing that, with these 3 to 5 that they had in the first year or two, they got the attention of Eventbrite. So then Eventbrite's like, who's this company selling all of these tickets for us? As they started, that contact, they started to come up with frameworks for incentives that could work outside of the Wanderlust type festivals. Instead of custom brand ambassador programs, they started to standardize things. They tested a few other verticals to see where the market could go. They used like a monthly yoga box, yoga clothing company to see if maybe the brand ambassador incentives would work for them. Product launch, we knew that they had reached this point where things were going to fundamentally change for them, because Eventbrite was like, hey, we'd actually like to integrate with you so that when a large festival posts something on our site, we show them the option to create an ambassador program with Social Ladder. So that's the being aligned with a thought leader and having a solid distribution channel. Getting to launch scale is increasing the automation so that they can apply this to any vertical that Eventbrite can host an event for. So I think just myth number 3, if you build it, they will come. Fact is, growth and scale are difficult and time intensive, but if you did all the other things correctly, this would be more straightforward. So these are the 3 facts, and I think since we only have a few minutes, I'll just leave it, let me see, look at all that, cool. Yeah. All right, any questions, guys, ladies? Susanna?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? They're so specific to my situation. I'm not sure if they're going to be useful to anyone listening to the webinar, but I can always follow up with you afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. You book a time on my calendar.
Great.
Or send me an email. Beth or Michelle, you guys feel like there's a lot of fires you have to put out? Or do you feel like, I don't know, some of my projects might be fundamentally based on nothing? I don't know. Where do you guys feel like you are?
I feel better that I took, for what some people said, too long to do customer discovery. And now that I'm launching 2 years later, what it looks like, and I'm actually launching back on my original idea after listening to bad advice, which is you need to have something coded. when I didn't. So I didn't lose 75,000, but I still need my $7,000 back. But so I agree. I'm doing everything much more manually, which is where I was 2 years ago, which is what I wish I would have started. Just kept on that path. So yeah, this is great.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lindsay, you've this is amazing. I have so much, I feel like not fires to put out, but like I have a lot to communicate to the people I work with, because we work with a sense of urgency most of the time. And so I've been operating under this pressure, like I just have to get stuff out, have to get stuff out, have to get stuff out. And in some cases, because we're very client focused, we respond to our clients really quickly, but in developing something new for them, it's actually like a mindset shift and cultural shift in terms of how we do this. And yeah, I mean, I feel a little bit like scared, because I feel a ton of pressure to like just get stuff out. And I also feel very sure that doing this will make it take less time in the long run, because then we're not going to have so many failures.
Well, I could come do this workshop for your company. I could come do this workshop for your company.
Yeah, that could be really helpful. So we should talk about that.
Yeah. So actually everything in this presentation, I wrote 6 blog articles that capture all of this. And if you go to my website, right under like the hero image, it shows like 4 of the titles. So I can email you guys and send you to at least like the main content pillar that outlines these stages. And then it links out to like, well, what is an MVP anyway? Or what is a product roadmap? Or who, it dives a little more into like problem exploration and solution finding. So I can send you guys that link to like get started. But all of this content in some way is in shareable format.
Yeah,
great. It's very, very helpful. As you dig deeper into customer research, I think that you find that customer research is just as big as you had said, the woman who was looking in the engineering world, and everyone told her it was too small, and you told her it was too big. Even within customer research, the vagrancies of needs between customers, right? They're in everything in context, right? So this customer values this more than that, and that customer values that more than this. And how many, when do you take a risk and say, I think there are more customers that are this and that than that and this, and therefore are going to go in that direction? Pick a horse.
Right.
And I think that would be, if you're going to design another workshop, I know this takes too much of your time, but for this process, or write an article. I would love to read an article about breaking down research based on assumptions. So you come in with these assumptions, and you can validate those or disprove them. But then all of a sudden, new assumptions pop up. And a structured way of evaluating that data would be hugely helpful.
Yeah, the like overall like general rule that obviously everything's more nuanced once you get into the nitty gritty, but it's like if one person says it, it's an anecdote, an opinion. 2 people say it, it's a coincidence, and 3 people say it, it's a theme. Right? So like if I was looking at a whole bunch of like survey data and I was able to filter by whether this person had ever spent money on services like mine before, or something like that, then I could see what their answers are versus like, you know, I can see what a female non-technical founder says versus a male technical founder or a male non-technical founder. So then I can see how their opinions vary. And you, at the end of the day, you have to say like, this is where I know the money is, or this is where I know my heart is. And like, that's where
okay, I'll take the money. That's
I know. If I went and took the money, I think I'd end up marketing back to all these 25-year-old like tech something or other and guys, and I don't want to do that. So.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Susanna. I hope to hear from you. It'd be great to reconnect.
I wanted to add the marketing piece because I'm a civil engineer, so that is not my thing at all. So that has been part of my struggle is the marketing piece. The other part is because I'm doing a two-sided marketplace, I identify with the women of color. So finding that voice or finding out or being able to speak to the employers has been the hardest struggle for me when doing marketing. So that's been the other slow part, was how to get in that voice, and even after talking to them, really understanding it and being able to hone into it, because I don't like their excuses, but it's their reasons for not being able, so forth, to find us, to recruit us. So.
Yeah.
Michelle, I work like in corporate leadership development, and so I spend a lot of time talking to the side of people you're talking to, and I do a lot of our business development and marketing and communication. So if you ever want to chat, I would be happy just to like be a sounding board.
I will contact you.
Yeah. And Michelle, to give you any type of hope, like my undergrad is systems engineering, and I used to poo-poo on marketing, and I got my butt kicked my first year when I had a e-commerce store, and I was like, this is all marketing.
Yep.
So if it gives you any hope, my best advice is that building a brand that's authentic to you, so not trying to be a character, but just being yourself, is going to get you the furthest. And then paying attention to like which marketing tactics, like where you can find your customer, but also which marketing tactics you feel comfortable employing. Because like if you're not a public speaker, then like then you shouldn't do it, right? You know, or if you're don't like video, then doing like Facebook Live every day isn't going to be good for you, because you're not going to show your best self if you're doing something that's uncomfortable for you.
Yeah, live stream video and speaking are my things. Blogging is not.
So, all right. Well, thanks, ladies, so much. Thanks, Hannah, for setting this up. If people start to like want this again later, I'm happy to do it again.
Amazing. Thank you so much for hosting, and this was incredible. So much like valuable information. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.